Three, two, one, and over to you, Chris.
Hello, and welcome to the SHB Unfiltered Podcast. Today, it's episode number, Ruben?
26.
26. I thought you were beginning to lose track there.
Slightly. Had to think about that one.
No, but it is episode 26. We have surpassed the quarter of a century. So that is an achievement within itself. Yes, we are in lockdown here. We are the only podcast that streams live every day on Facebook around 6:15 p.m., even though today is a little bit later. So today hosted by myself, Christopher Jackson, aka CJ, and I've got my co-host, Ruben Pillai here. Ruben, how are you getting on today?
Yo, I'm good. Just been a bit of a busy day. I've been up since 6:30, maybe
6:30.
Yeah. Trying to get all my stuff done, all my work done, all my project stuff done, so I can really spend some time on the charity and smash this podcast.
Yeah.
Just smash life, man. Smash life.
Talking of the quarter century episode, what happened to it today, Ruben, on YouTube?
It got a bit lost in the post, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I can't find it.
I'm not sure if it was my dodgy uploading skills or the powers that be. However, it is back up there and available to listen. It's a really good episode. I actually enjoyed looking back on it and seeing us being very transparent about our feelings towards our peers within the stuttering community.
Yeah.
I do think we don't I think we are kind of misunderstood at times, but it is our responsibility to make ourselves a bit more clearer, a bit more transparent, and a bit more available. So if you guys want to find out a bit more about us, just check out this podcast, right? Because who else is doing this?
Exactly, yeah. Perhaps sometimes we are misunderstood. Perhaps sometimes people take things the wrong way, or they take what we post the wrong way, or where we post. But ultimately, it's just another hurdle, and we will continue to do what we do. Hopefully, we encourage people to take action and work on their speech. That is the purpose of this podcast, especially during the lockdown, at a time where perhaps people do not have as many opportunities to work on their speech as they usually would, in terms of everyday life, in terms of work, in terms of just making phone calls, or they might be tempted to just sit at home and watch Netflix all day rather than put a little bit of work into their speech. So hopefully, if this podcast can encourage people to do that and take action and work on their speech so that they don't come out of this lockdown in a worse position than they started, then we have done our job, Ruben. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, I completely agree. It serves many purposes, and if we could help just a couple of people, then I'd be very happy. I was going to ask, have you done your 5K run yet?
I haven't, no. I know that I committed to doing it to you yesterday, didn't I? But I may potentially do it after the podcast. If not, then I will definitely be doing it tomorrow.
Cool. I'm still waiting for my DOMs to wear off, and I'm going to give it another crack, do it properly.
Yeah.
Find somewhere a bit flatter, because I got destroyed the other day. My lower back is still in bits.
Yeah, I was reading somewhere today that coronavirus and encouraging people to exercise too much can actually be bad for people's health. I don't know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
That, but it's encouraging people to enter the phase of over-exercising.
Yeah, definitely. Like you probably know as well from your basketball experiences and in the gym, that when you train, your immune system gets weaker, making yourself more susceptible to
Made it weaker.
picking
I
up
thought it
stuff.
would enhance it.
Not straight away.
Wow.
So in that period when you finish training, you are readily available to like pick up germs, whatever. That's why people catch like colds and stuff from sparring, a staph infection that goes around, and like Thai boxing gyms and BJJ as well. So you've got to be careful. You can pick up like so many things because you are like exerting yourself, you're weakening your defenses, and you are kind of in contact with people who are doing the same thing.
So what could be the problem for people that have started to exercise during the lockdown period that you usually wouldn't, is that they may be doing too much too soon just because they're following an online HIIT workout, but they're not in the right shape to do that workout straight away. So it could be counterproductive.
Yeah, definitely. But it is also a bit of pot luck as well, because they would have to come into contact with people with the virus on that day. If they went to the shops afterwards, then that's not a good idea. But if they went to the shops before, then train, then they avoid those people.
Yeah, but hopefully after the coronavirus, people keep it up. So the coronavirus could be the only positive that could come out of it is that people can continue exercising and continue to live a healthier lifestyle.
Are you mad, mate? As soon as this thing is done, everyone's going out and getting smashed.
I was just trying to be optimistic, but
you're in La La Land.
Yeah, man. I don't know, but
straight after this is finished, there's going to be every night, all the pubs will be heaving. There'll be parties on literally every day, house parties, this party. Everyone's gonna like. There'll be like a backlog of weddings and birthdays, and people just gonna go nuts, right? Come on.
Well, I think the queue at McDonald's is probably going to be the longest you've ever seen. I know so many people are missing McDonald's. How many memes have you seen online about like how much would a McDonald's drop right now?
McDonald's is rubbish as well. Like, what is the obsession? Seriously, like
what? I like McDonald's.
It's rubbish. It's crap.
Well, at all.
Yeah. Like the only thing I have from there is fries. That's it. That's if I was like really desperate, had some drinks, and I'm out, finished, and on the way back home, get some fries and jump on the night tube. That's it.
Yeah,
if anything, I'm more craving the Nando's, dude.
Yeah, I might be a little bit late with this, but China seems to have everything under control, but they're getting a second wave of coronavirus now, which is worrying for us. And I know there's been talk about potentially lifting the lockdown mid-May. Is that true here?
I think they're targeting like the 8th of May or something. But with China, like they reopened that market where the virus started from. So I'm not surprised that something else came out of there. Yeah, I'm not surprised at all.
I think if that's happening over there, it's definitely wishful thinking to lift the lockdown on 8th of May.
We'll see what happens, but I think you have to take into account like the type of place the city is. So for example, here, because we rely so much on the tube and train system, you can't take a risk here, especially in the capital, because as soon as that gets back in the tube, we're all screwed again. It'll just get passed around and it will kick off again. Because all it took was just one or two people to go to that ski resort and pick it up from that guy who had that business trip. Like, that's how it started, right?
Yeah.
Because there was an article in the news about the super spreader. So there's that guy who went skiing, just passed around the chalet, and then they brought it back to Brighton, I think. And then
yeah, but I just think they should let everybody know from now. Like, just try and drag it on as long as possible until the end of May, and then everybody knows where they stand, rather than giving people hope that they're going back to work and then they start preparing for it and then it doesn't happen, and now work isn't in a proper place to start working from home again. Everyone was expecting to be able to go into it. I think if everyone knows where they stand, then everyone can just accept it. Everyone can prepare for it, mentally prepare themselves for it, and everyone just accept it and get on with it, rather than, are we going back to work? Are we not going back to work? Is it going to go back to normal in a month, 2 months? You know.
The only way they can do that is if they actually get off their seats and test everyone.
Well, yeah.
Because until you do that, then how will a person know where they stand? Dude, we could have the virus right now. You do realize that?
Yeah, I don't think I have it. I'm pretty sure though.
No, but like in China, so 1 in 3 people who tested positive did not show any symptoms at all.
Yeah, I know.
And if you go by the ratio of, say, like maybe for every 10 people, 2 people have it, then the chance that of the 2, 1 will not be showing any symptoms.
Yeah.
So if you test everyone, then you're going to know, okay, so these people, they can actually step out of the house. These people stay inside. Or if you live with these people, stay inside for 2 or 3 more weeks.
Yeah. Not a lot has been said about the antibody tester, has it now? Like, everything's gone quiet.
Of course it's gone quiet, because they didn't have anything to tell. That's why. Because what's happened now is they didn't have anything to write about. So what they do is, previously they would pick out a speech and start pulling out bits and really break it down over 2 or 3 pages. Now they take that one speech or the one finding and they spread that out over 2 or 3 days. And they make a headline out of 1 or 2 quotes from that speech. And they rinse and repeat, because they literally don't have anything to write about. Look at the sports pages.
Yeah.
There's no sports on. So they're going through all these retro games and just trying to like churn things out. In the same way, what can they say in the news? Because they're reporting back every day. It didn't have like any progress on the antibodies, then what can they say the next day?
Yeah,
because it's not going to get fixed overnight, is it?
Yeah, and especially the sports channels, that's hard. I mean, I was watching it the other day and they're literally just trying to force transfer talk that's potentially just like rumours and never going to happen. I was watching Gary Neville the other day that was saying, you know, Harry Kane should leave, and I know Harry Kane, and Jamie Redknapp was saying, I know Harry Kane will leave Tottenham because of how Tottenham has been, how they've behaved during this time. And it's like, Harry Kane hasn't said he's going to leave yet.
Yeah, I think there was something I saw and it was like really pointless. It was like Jamie O'Hara's best 11 that he's ever played with. And I'm thinking, who cares? Who actually cares?
Well, there was some pretty good Tottenham players in his team, I have to say.
Yeah, a couple, but
some good players, man.
Still, it's very left field.
Yeah,
they are stretching. Go on, Chris. What's happening in the world of Facebook?
So, over to the Facebook feed. Thank you for everyone that's tuned in. We've got Chris Papacosta has joined again. Chris Papacosta, our friend, my cousin. And we got Leo on there. We've got a comment from Mark Murphy. You lads are doing a great job. Thank you very much, Mark. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mark.
We just got another comment from Mark. Hopefully I'll have more time to catch up with your podcast later. We have a support group at 7 p.m. up here in Cumbria. We're also using Zoom. You guys are definitely putting yourself out there. Well, that's what it's all about. That's what we're trying to do. So happy that that's been recognised. Really appreciate the comments and the support.
And I think more importantly, it isn't something that we just thought, yeah, let's like do it and then it will be perfect straight away. like for everyone thinking that, and especially yourself, Mark, check out the first episode and see how we progressed as a partnership, and how like, the whole setup has progressed as well, in terms of getting guests on board, and the way we interview them, and the way we have kind of improved in our own abilities to kind of present topics and really break things down over a 1 hour period. It isn't an overnight job, because we're currently on episode 26. Now, if we were dedicated to doing this in the normal world when we aren't quarantined, and say hypothetically doing a podcast every 2 weeks, then this is 1 year's worth of podcasts. 1 whole year, 26 episodes, right? 26 times 2 is 52. If we podcasted every week, then this would be 6 months worth. So we are kind of 6 months to 1 year into this project that has literally taken us under 4 weeks.
Having launched this podcast, though, Ruben, it's not that I understand why people quit, because I don't. I think podcasts are cool. They're one of the most enjoyable things that I've ever got involved in. But I think that I can see why people get disheartened, and I don't believe that they should. I think that people launch a podcast, they put it out there, and they're so obsessed with the numbers. How many viewers? How many views on YouTube? How many on this platform, Anchor? Who has streamed it? Who has liked it on Facebook? But it's not about that. It's about you are probably reaching a lot more people than is represented on your likes, or whatever stats you're trying to use to justify to yourself that you're putting out a good podcast. You've got to realize the majority of people that view things online, they don't click that like button. The majority, how many videos on YouTube do you see with 1 million views, but like 1,000 likes? You know, so the only thing I would say to people is you should be, if starting a podcast is something that you want to do, then definitely do it. Definitely see it through. Do not look at the numbers. Just keep putting out relevant content that you believe your listeners will benefit from. And that is all you have to do. Everything else will take care of itself, in my opinion. That's what I truly believe.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I kind of gave it a crack as well some point 1 year ago. And I kind of went through that period of like going through sound and doing all the editing and stuff. And it was really full on, because I kind of went the other way, and that I was going above and beyond. I was meeting people in person, and I found that the podcasts were actually really good. The quality was good, but it was really hard to actually kind of maintain that over a long period of time. So that's why when we came up with this format, I said, look, let's focus on kind of a bit of effort, but maximize value for the audience. And let's focus on value for the audience, as opposed to thinking more about how we can gain from it. What can we give to the person, people watching the podcast? And this would be a good way to actually kind of like showcase who we are and the work we do, and get the kind of SHB family and friends involved as well. And we picked up a few new friends along the way as well, right, Chris?
Yeah, we definitely have. There's been a lot of support, especially Callum Schofield along the way. I just want to shout him out again for the amount of support he shows. He's constantly sharing our stuff. So I just want to say a big thank you for that. What I want to mention though is you started your podcast and then we started this one, but just because it was quite difficult for you the first time around, it didn't discourage you from doing it again. And what you've done is you took that experience and you were able to work out, okay, let's adapt the approach this time to make it more suitable to us and to make it easier for us to put out content. And that is the key thing. You cannot get discouraged. And if you do, then you're only quitting on yourself.
Like, don't get me wrong, it was a great experience. I had a lot of fun doing it, but I kind of burned out really quickly because I was going above and beyond constantly in that time, and I had to find a different way of actually doing it, which brought us through this actual virtual setup, because this was more of a sustainable way. Like an example would be, so for one of the episodes I met up with Paneet, and so we did podcasts and it was great, but I literally went to Leicester to meet him up and to record it. And then came back. Like, that's the lengths of, but that was the effort I was putting in to actually get out an episode. And if you think about the amount of effort you're putting in versus the value that you're giving, it was completely imbalanced. Even though it was a really good episode, and I'll probably share it with this channel some point after we come out of quarantine. It could be a filler episode for the Unfiltered Podcast. But yeah, I kind of had a great time doing it, and in that period I learned so much about the production, the functionality, the way it's done, formats, the way to interview people, my own strengths, and I got that style as well. I implemented that in my public speaking. That stepped up as well. So I picked up so many great things from that experience. That when I decided, all right, so shall we kick off with the SHB podcast? I knew straight away this is the format that was going to work. Daily, turn up, regardless. And we didn't have to rely on always having guests, because that's a stress that some people have. Always trying to get guests, them cancelling on them.
Yeah.
Etc. etc.
Yeah, I'm trying to imagine you've planned a podcast, so you only release a podcast once a month, say, and you've planned the whole month. You have this guest that you're expecting, and you've planned the whole month. Your whole monthly podcast is devoted to this one guest, and they cancel 10 minutes before the podcast. Like, that must just kill people inside.
It's not as bad as that, because they would have recorded a few, so have a few in backlog and release them. So they would always be like 2 or 3 episodes behind.
Yeah.
But they won't be doing it live. So they'll still have some in the back pocket to put out. But you're going to have to like keep making them in case you get to that point where we're like, all right, so I've got one more podcast left, but I need to get this one done to buy me an extra week.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time as well, but this is perfect. This format's wicked.
Yeah, I can imagine. But moving on, Ruben, to the topic of the day.
I'm gone. What are we doing?
Job interviews. Now, this is a topic that a lot of stutterers fear the most. I know that I feared it the most. That was my biggest issue. It was what I was most scared of when I was struggling the most with my speech. Ruben, you actually work in an environment that I always wanted to work in. Before I started to work on my speech, before I decided what I wanted to do, working in the finance industry, in the city, in a bank, whichever role it was, that was where I truly wanted to be back then. But my biggest fear was getting to an interview process, to the point that I was half-heartedly applying for jobs. And we know how difficult it is to just get an interview and how many applications you have to complete to get that initial interview. What was that process like for you? Talk us through coming out of university and then applying for your job. How many did you have to apply for? Just talk us through that journey.
I was kind of fortunate in a strange way. So where I lived in first year, in my halls of residence with the university, there were quite a few people there with that were doing kind of economics courses and stats and maths and all that kind of stuff. They were applying for like placements at banks and the different types of financial roles for the summer that I wasn't really aware of at the time. So I was talking to them, attended a few fairs just to get an idea of like the names of all these places and research them a bit. And then, so after seeing them apply, I would just apply as well, just to try and get somewhere. I didn't think anything at the time would happen. I just thought, yeah, it would be good to have a paid summer job at one of these places, get some extra cash for the following year. That'd be great. And yeah, so I started doing that, and then I eventually got kind of my first internship in summer of 2010. This is like before I went into final year. And so you spend 10 weeks in like investment bank, and they take you around. You spend kind of 2 weeks in different roles. You do all these events and stuff like that. But the actual process itself, it kind of varies from organization to organization, but they typically start off with application form, CV, cover letter, then all these competency questions. Just show me an example where you've done this, done that, done this, done that. A few questions about kind of the market in general, and you just have to research a bit and answer the questions. Then you send it off, and you literally do that for as many places as you can. Then some of them come back, some will not. It's all first come, first serve. So I was trying to get these done in like September, October for the following summer. So you have to get in there really, really quickly.
Yeah.
Telephone interviews, they come.
How did you get on with those?
It was a mixed bag, because typically for the ones where it went telephone interview first, and then face-to-face. So it will kind of go telephone interview, then first round face-to-face, then final round assessment center. For quite a few of them, I didn't get through the telephone interview. But for the ones where the next round was face-to-face, where there was no telephone interview, I got through those ones. And for me, it was just like a numbers game. The more you apply, eventually like something will crop up, and probably apply to like 35 to 40 places. This is like kind of doing answers for each place, and then saving them, and if the questions repeat itself, then you can use it, improve it. And then kind of those 35 to 40, you get responses from maybe 10 to 15, which from that you get about 8 to 10 phone interviews or first round interviews, which leads to about 3 or 4 assessment centers. Then if you're lucky, then you get one at the end. And and if you get one, that's it. You are laughing because
That's all that process.
they're really hard to get. They're really hard to get. They're really hard to get because so many people are applying for just a couple of spots. So you say can't be sad. Oh no, I got rejected from 39 places. You got one in the end, isn't it?
Yeah, but was that process all for an internship?
Yeah.
All for a 10-week internship?
Yeah.
Wow, one hell of a process.
But what that does, it gives you like experience of that place, put on your CV, but also gives you like really good experience of an application process.
Yeah.
When you do graduate, like you're a bit more streetwise.
Yeah. And what did that lead to after? Did you manage to make enough of an impression to get offered a role for when you graduate, or was that the aim of it, or was that never the aim of it for you?
It kind of was the aim, but once I was there, a couple of things happened. I didn't really want to work in that place or in that area, and B, they went through like a weird merger, which resulted in loads of cuts. So by the end of it, the team I was in, they had all been either transferred out or got made redundant. So there wasn't really like a place for me afterwards, which is kind of a good thing as well. I kind of knew that I didn't want to work in that particular area. So what I did was went back to final year. Pardon me. Went back to final year, and now everyone's applying for graduate jobs. But the process is pretty much the same thing, same type of interview as well. Because what they do is if they bring in for an internship, they already see you as a potential for the graduate role because you pass the same process.
I was actually going to ask that.
Yeah.
When you went to apply for a job after you graduated, were you applying for the graduate scheme, or were you applying for a full-time role now that you had already had that 10-week internship under your belt?
The graduate scheme is essentially a full-time role, and it's just called that because of cost center reasons. So if there's a graduate scheme, you'll be paid from the HR cost center as opposed to the department that you work for. So, what I did was instead of applying for graduate schemes, I wanted to take some time out and go traveling after graduate. So I applied for internships again because I did one that summer and they paid quite a bit. So what they do is they give you same salary as the grads, but they pro rata it for 10 weeks.
Wow.
So I thought I could just do the same thing. So I started applying again, this time kind of for a few other roles, like a mix of roles that I was keen on. Same process. Eventually I got one at the end. With that particular one, it was kind of like at that time, in terms of speech, one of my achievements when I look back at that period, because give me 1 second, Chris. I need to plug my charger in before the laptop dies.
That's okay.
7%. Just keep talking.
That's all right. We'll wait for Ruben to sort his charger out. I think a massive lesson to take from Ruben's experiences, and I'll ask him about this after, but is that there's no need to hesitate when it comes to applying for roles. And I know that that's a characteristic of a lot of people that have stutters, and it's what I used to do. But I think it's very important for people to listen to Ruben's story to realize that if you are currently at uni and you are getting that anxiety about applying for jobs, and now life is about to get real, as they say, because I know that uni for me was 4 years where I could avoid working, 4 years of me not having to do them job interviews or stutter in a working environment. So I think what we need to take from Ruben's story is that there's no need to hesitate when you're applying for roles. And I know that a lot of people will, but as Ruben said, it is a numbers game. So you could potentially be hesitating for a role that you're not even going to get looked at for. But eventually you will get looked at if you apply for enough. And once it comes knocking on your door, you have to take it, because that's what you've been working towards, right?
Definitely, Chris. That's really good advice, because if you hesitate, then the opportunity is gone. So you don't really have anything to actually lose either way. And that's the way I saw it. So with this particular role, this was one where I don't think there was an actual application form. Just they asked for CV and the cover letter, and that was amongst your 35 to 40 applications. So it's sent. Then about 2 months later, again, an email from that place saying, "Oh, like you've been accepted to the next stage." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't actually think at the time that I applied to them as well." But got an email from that organization. They sent me the links for the online tests. So they're the math test, and it was like really, really hard. It was harder than the test from the competitor banks, like super, super hard. Instead of having like the question with 4 or 5 options, they had the question in, and you had to like take data from table and do all the ratios and stuff. Then you pick an answer from a drop-down menu. Now in that drop-down menu, you had probably about 25 options there to pick from. And the time limit was really tight. So the time limit per question, and it got tighter and tighter and tighter. So I finished that test, and then I was just like, whoa, this is really, really hard. Now, a few weeks later, I get an email again saying, "Great, you passed the test." And I'm like, "Oh, good, thank God." They then did the phone interview. Same thing as well, went through questions, practiced a bit. And then I got through that and got invited to the assessment center. Now, the assessment center for this place was brutal. You need to get to Canary Wharf at 7 a.m. and you stay with them till 3 p.m. They give you a timetable. Now you got 4 one-to-one interviews with VPs and the MDs. 4. There's a group exercise with your group.
Wow.
There's a written exercise where you analyze some like report and you make business recommendations, and then you actually have to present your answers to a person, and they'll ask you Q&A about it, and they give you like these transparent sheets to make slides. Then on top of that, they give you a retest of the math test that you did at home, just to verify that.
Nightmare of an experience.
Yeah, so you get there and they give you a timetable, so you have all your things and it tells you like the timing. So you're going to have your interview with this person that time, and in terms of my preparation for that day, it was purely focused around the interview itself, and I was thinking, well, there's 4 or 5 people there, so they're probably going to be asking like similar questions. So I just ensured that I knew my CV inside out, and in each one, as soon as it started, like I told the person, yeah, just before we start, I have a stutter and I'm going to pause a bit. And they were completely fine with it. And I just, when it went into the first one, met the person, they were pretty friendly, and all the interviews turned into a bit of a chat, but the emphasis was obviously on me. And I also did quite a bit of research as well. And I didn't just go on websites, I was going on to YouTube at the time as well, which I don't think that many people were doing in 2011. Now, one of the questions that that the lady asked me was, where do you see kind of the future of banking? And like the typical things people they can say is are like markets, China, BRIC countries, the emerging markets, and South America, India, etc. And the night before, there was this clip I saw that was, I forgot the exact kind of link in the background, but I found this clip, and what they were talking about was phones and apps. This was in 2011. So then I went into some like explanation about how in the future we will be doing all our banking through apps, and even corporates. So if you are the CFO of a corporation, and if you want to build a factory in China, but you are based in the UK, you can transfer your funds through this app to that phone, and it will just be done through apps and the tech around it. And they're kind of growing at the moment, but this will be incorporated into the banking industry in the future. And I went into some kind of like explanation about it, and the person was like, whoa. And fast forward now, that's what's happening in banking.
Yeah,
that's literally what's happening right now.
Yeah, that person that was interviewing you must be like, wow, that kid was right. He was spot on. Look at it.
Yeah, so this was me at 21 years old, actually. And one of the other people there, so he was asking brain teasers, and there was a question that he asked was, okay, so if you were told that if you went to the gym 2 hours twice a week and did it for 25 years consistently, and as a result you would extend your life expectancy by an extra 5 years, would it be worth it? That was the question that he asked me. And then he also gave me like a pen and paper as well, if I wanted to use it to defend my answer.
And what was your answer?
I'm gonna quickly pass it over to you first to see, like, what's your thought process in terms of tackling that question?
So initially what I would think is I would work out 4 hours a week for a year. So I would do 4 times 52, which I don't know what that is off the top of my head. What is that? 212?
It's about 208, isn't it?
I don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
So my maths is not that great. I like using calculators. That's what they were invented for. But then what I would do is I would times that by 25, work out how many years that is, see if it was more than 5 years or less than 5 years, and then people would decide based on a number. But there's so many other factors that matter to tell you whether that's worth it or not, because the quality of your life even if it's less, the quality of your life will be improved. So there's other things to think about. That's how I would tackle the question, and that's how I would decide my answer. But you can tell me how wrong I was or I am.
No, I think that's pretty good, because I tackled it in a similar fashion as well, but I kind of took the analysis a bit further on. So I kind of said how, okay, so within your day, you would sleep for an average of 8 hours. So that's a third of a day. So even if you're extending your span by an extra 5 years, a third of it would be spent sleeping. So it isn't actually kind of an extra 5 years of proper life you're gaining.
Never.
Yeah. And then I also talked about the kind of the quality of life and the extra things that one person they would gain from actually being fit and going to the gym at that frequency. And then at the end he said, right, cool. And then he didn't say anything else, but it was just an exercise to see your thought process. And then finished the interview with him. Then as we left, we walked down the corridor back to like the room where all of the candidates were. And we walked past it, and the corridor was completely kind of white. So all the walls were white. And we walked past like one wall that was just green. And then so he just asked me, hey, like, what's your thoughts about that wall? And then I just said, oh, it's a bit random, isn't it? And then he goes, that's what I said too. Yeah, and then that was the end of the interaction I had with him. But it appears I did make a positive impression with him, because I got that placement in the end. And beyond all that, like with all the questions they were asking and all these group exercises and these things, like worrying about your speech is just going to like deter you from actually performing and producing kind of the answers that they want to hear.
How did you get into that mindset at that age, to not allow your speech to deter you from the goal that's in front of you here, and that is getting accepted for that placement?
I just felt like I didn't have a choice, really. Because the other option, yeah, it's as simple as that. It's either I could go for it now, or yeah, it's just it, that kind of thought, it didn't even come into my mind at that point.
Yeah, you were focused that I'm gonna get one of these internships
regardless, because if you keep going, then at some point it's gonna happen.
How do you keep that that energy up? So okay, let me ask you the first question that I wanted to ask you. If we take it back to when you got in that interview room and you explained, I have a stutter, what was their response? I think it's important for people to hear that. What was their initial response?
They said it's fine, just take your time and stuff, and it's all good here, it's fine. And that's the first bit, because if you don't tell them, then it leads to confusion, because if you are successful in hiding it, and then it's kind of stable for the first 10 minutes and then it crops up, then there's even more confusion. But at least if you tell them right at the start, now you're both on the same page, just carry on.
Yeah, I agree. And also the reason why I think that disclosure is so important at the beginning of a job interview, because now you have given yourself permission to say any words you want without them thinking, okay, what's going on here? Is he nervous? Is he hesitating? Is he unsure? You've now got the right to say whatever you want throughout that whole interview at your pace. You've told them, this is who I am. I do have a stutter. It's not a problem. Just, I may pause. I may take my time. And then they're aware of it. And also it can work to your advantage, because that says a lot about a person that's prepared to do that at the beginning of a job interview. Did you find that it was only advantageous for you to do that?
Without a doubt, because it gives you a chance to actually to show them on your terms, and that's key. That's the key thing, because then you can control their perceptions. If you can confidently say, excuse me, before you start, I'm just going to tell you now, I'm going to pause and I'll be blocking a bit at certain points because I've got a speech impediment, as opposed to being fine, then going through the secondaries and then struggling to say words, and then them assuming that you're nervous and anxious and anxiety. Then by the time they work out that you stutter, their first opinions are already there and already formed. But if you disclose, you've got the opportunity to control that perception. You control the narrative.
Yeah, first impressions are so important. And you have to realize that the person that's sitting at the other side of that table to you may not have, well, they may have encountered someone that's got a stutter, but they might not be that knowledgeable on it and how it affects people. So instantly, your first impression has been ruined because you're coming across like you are unsure, you're nervous, all the rest of it. But at the same time, because you haven't disclosed and you're trying to hide it, you now feel all of those things. You do become anxious, you do become nervous. And because of that, it's only natural that because there's so much stress going on in your head, you're not in the right frame of mind to perform to the best of your ability in that interview. And you're not in the right frame of mind to take the question, take it in, process it, and then process the right answer, or the answer that you know is the right answer to give, rather than a rushed answer. You know, they're structured to certain answers. They ask questions at certain times for certain reasons to see how you respond to them. And if you're panicking the whole time and just trying to keep your answers short and sweet to get out of that situation, that's not going to be beneficial for you at all.
Yeah. Very, very, very good advice there, Chris. Very good advice, because the worst thing like you could experience is someone who has all the potential in the world, about to finish university, but if you can't communicate the way you want to communicate, then you will always be on the sidelines. And there will be other people there who aren't kind of like as bright as you, or they don't have that particular skill that you have, but they will take your opportunities.
Yeah. And that's what used to frustrate me, is I used to look at other people and I used to always compare myself, because that was an actual characteristic, you know, I'm worried, conscious, self-aware all the time. And I used to compare myself to everyone. I used to think, he's not cleverer than me. He's not smarter than me. He's not more capable to do that job than I am. But yet he's able to show it. And looking back, I now realize, of course he's able to show it, because he gave himself permission to be able to show it. Regardless of if he's a fluent speaker or he's a stutterer or not, he's given himself permission. And I never, ever gave myself the permission. But a question I do have for you, Ruben, is, okay, someone is struggling with their speech, and to get in front of someone is something they really want to happen so that they can test themselves. But they're struggling with the application process. They haven't received that email or that call or been invited to that interview. What advice do you give them to keep pushing on and to not get disheartened, to not give up, to realize that it is a numbers game? What advice would you give to that person?
just keep trying, because at some point it will come. Probably don't give yourself a time limit. To just say, look, like if I keep doing this for the next 3 years, something's bound to happen. If I set myself a target of kind of 2 applications a day for 3 years, like, don't operate on the shortened time scale. What's the rush? Like, these next, like, 1, 2, 3 years, put in the work in now to get one of these roles, and then this can set you up for the next 10 to 15 years, and that will lead on to different things. Because that is the massive problem, right? Because if you don't take advantage of these opportunities when you're young, it has a domino effect in your 20s, and by the time you get into your 30s, it's even harder to get into that particular sector that you were previously targeting, but you didn't go for interviews because of your speech. But now other people have already taken that path, and sadly they'll be the ones who would be interviewing you but by the time you jump off your seat to apply. Now just think of the alternative. Is the alternative better? No? Then just keep going, right?
Yeah.
Because like for me personally, I didn't have any other like choice where, and I got quite a lot of support from like my friends and stuff. So they were kind of applying as well. So we would all apply together, and like if they went to interviews, they'd come back and say, this is what happened. And it was quite a collaborative environment. So you can feel by yourself. Then support from my parents as well, because they always said, look, like kind of it's just speech and it's just a job, just keep trying, will come. They came to this country, they were fleeing a war to come here.
Yeah.
So their perspective of difficulties is completely different to this. So they just said, like, you are in a good place, so whatever happens, it will turn out good, just keep trying. And I always kept that faith, and that's it really.
Yeah. No, that's great advice.
Don't give up. Don't give up too early. Keep going.
And do not put a time limit on it. There is no rush. There's no rush. You can apply for 50 jobs, 100 jobs, 200 jobs. There is no rush. Eventually, it is going to come.
There is no rush, but make sure you start. Because people are too slow to start and too quick to finish.
Yeah, procrastination, and then they get disheartened quickly when they don't get instant results.
Exactly.
Sort of like some people when they start to work on their speech, they avoid it. They think, okay, I need to do something about it. And because their expectations haven't been managed enough to know that it is a journey, it is a long journey, and something that you will have to continuously work on, they give up at the first hurdle, which is really sad to see, because you just think if you just kept on going, you are going to see results, and it is going to motivate you more and more and more.
Definitely, Chris. And yeah, I think like with those types of experiences, like, because you think at this point we're talking about the application process and the intensity of those assessment centers. Now the actual role itself, when I get there, like, you think to yourself, oh, you've done all the hard work. The thing just kicks up to a different level now, because you are put on the microscope every single day, because these guys have took you out straight from your course for the summer, treating you like a full-time employee, paying you like a full-time employee, they expect you to overperform because you're just there for 10 weeks, and they lump in all work, deadlines, you've got to present here, go here, network this, do this, there's a phone all day, do that, and it's proper intense, man, proper intense, and it really tests your ability to your ability to just cope. And when I finished, I was thankful that experience was done, saved up all the money I earned when traveling for 5 months, whatever it was, and best experience of my life at that point. And it was only because I did the hard work in those 2 years before, just doing applications after application, because by the time I got to that role, I was 21 and I probably applied to about 100 jobs, like in those environments, like doing all the forms and tests and everything. So
how many interviews did you get out of those 100 applications?
Like in terms of the first round or the final round, or it depends, right?
That's the first round.
First round, probably 25 to 30%.
Wow, that's pretty high, isn't it, Ruben?
First round, yeah, but that's because if you get in there really, really, really early on, when the job actually posts and starts, so they normally put them up during the freshers period.
Yeah, but was there anything in particular that you did personally that made you stand out from the crowd? So you imagine they receive a pile of CVs, hundreds of CVs. What do you feel made your CV different to everybody else's?
To be honest,
or the whole application. I'm talking cover note, questions that you answered.
No, like if I'm being straight up, at that point, my application was pretty much the same as the people around me. But just because we got in there like really early on, and with the university I went to and the people around me, because it was a really good academic environment, so the quality of the applications were overall pretty good. But they, as in the ones I put forward, they weren't like kind of extra special compared to everyone else. It was just, for me, it was a numbers game. And by the time I went to the second internship, I had the first one on my CV, right?
Yeah.
Now it's different. So as soon as you get that first one, like it's like a stamp. Okay, so this guy has got actual proper like placement, and he's still applying for like this internship. Yeah, let's take him on. Boom. And yeah, like, because that experience, it made me a lot more streetwise when I went into job market after I came back from traveling. And it also funded my traveling as well, which is incredible, because it was something I dreamed of at that time, and I specifically planned it in that way. So it was a 1 year plan to actually get the funds and get the time to do it.
We got Leo just joined us again. He said, just joining in at the end, laugh out loud. Been busy working on my speech. That's what we like to hear. That's great job. Great job, Leo. But he's got a question for you, Ruben. What are you doing for a living, Ruben? I don't even know. But that's obviously because he missed the start of the podcast. But just quickly let him know what your job title is, Ruben.
I'm very disappointed in him, actually. Look, people call me and have a chat and talk about speech, but this is it.
Not interested.
They didn't ask about the old rubes. The old rubes.
Old rubes.
Leah, I will give you a lowdown the next time we speak. Don't worry.
There you have it, Ruben. I mean, Leah, there you have it. There you have it. So,
yeah, like really good experience. And you, like, if there's one bit of advice I take from job interviews is, if you don't actually get through it, don't blame it on your speech at all. Regardless if it was the fault of your speech, don't blame it on your speech, and try to take as much feedback possible into the next one. Because as soon as you start blaming it on your speech, then you're gonna feel like crap. Like, just keep applying and stuff. Just keep applying.
Yeah, just keep going. Keep going. It's great advice. It's great advice. Looking to wrap things up, Ruben? Looking to wrap things up. Any final thoughts or final words?
I'm all good. Just happy we are at episode 26. Getting really close to 30 now, Chris, which is I think we'll be at 30 on Friday, right?
Yeah.
27, 28. No, Saturday. It's a Saturday, so.
Saturday.
Give me a Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm just looking forward in that month.
Definitely, man.
1 month of solid podcasting.
Definitely.
Cannot wait. But the final word from me, if you take anything from this podcast and the advice that Ruben has given, is that when you're applying for jobs, do not let your stutter stop you from submitting that application. Do not allow it to hold you back from going for jobs that you really want to go for. When you get that initial interview, it is so important that you disclose straight away. It puts you at ease, puts the listener at ease. You can now conduct that interview in the way that you want to. It is so, so important. But preparation for your interview is the key. Like Ruben said, researching is so important because it gives you that competitive advantage over everyone else. And usually when you prepare and you know you've prepared, you're less worried about your speech because you're confident in what you're saying. You're not mumbling, you're not stumbling, you're not trying to think on your feet. You know what you want to talk about. You know what the company does, where they're looking to go, who's in which position in the company. You might even have researched the person that's interviewing you, so you know a little bit about him and you can create some common ground potentially. And if for whatever reason you do not get the outcome you want, do not ever blame your speech. Do not blame your speech. Keep on going, ask for feedback, and make the necessary improvements. So yeah, that is how we would tackle job interviews. Ruben, it's been a pleasure. It's been great. Thank you for the valuable advice that all our listeners now have, and we will continue to give advice. The main aim of the charity is to improve people's employability. That's what we strive to do, and we will continue to strive to do it. So, Ruben, do you want to do the honors?
Of course, well, of course. Thank you for listening, and remember, stop holding back.